Hudson's kind of unique. Two museums about 2 blocks apart. One really focuses on the community, the surrounding area community, and this looks at the community as well. There's a lot of stories here within the community. G.I. Thompson, Royal Wheeler Thompson, and Royal Thompson came out here. Left the family farm in Fort Anne, New York because they were some kind of something going on there. I don't know if it was something that was in the wheat crops itself, flood fire, plague of locusts, I tell people. I don't know what was going on. But they came out here to Hudson because they wanted to find their way in the wild, wild west. And 1840s America, Lenawee County, this is really the Wild West. So they come out here, find employment, start making their way in the world, serve in the Civil War, save their money from that, and they start a bank here in town. And the Thompson Savings Bank, as it would become, served this area for about 130 years before it was bought out by United Bank and Trust, what's now Old National Bank. He left his legacy. This was kind of his last gift to the community, was this museum. A lot of the projects in the 1980s here in Hudson and the surrounding area, if there was an anonymous donor that helped to get it done, that was William G. Thompson. And he always wanted to see his house converted into a museum. Just couldn't figure out how to do it, and that foundation board that he put together in the 1980s said, Bill, if you want this to be a museum, we'll find a way to do it, and they've done that. There's a lot of fun things. We talked a little bit earlier about the dining room table, where it was, we've got the original receipt for it when his grandparents built the home. $50 dining room table with the hand-carved matching oak chairs that go with it, the side cabinet that comes with it. Kind of comes with it because of the grandmother wanting it and just buying it out of her own pocket where the grandfather wouldn't do it. We've got just a lot of unique things that are not so much that they're unique, but there's a story attached to them because it is 3 generations that are in the home. It was his grandparents, his parents, and then the things that he picked up along the way. He was very good about documenting where things came from and how they got here. And then there's other things that, it didn't matter if it was $2, $200, $2,000. If he liked it, he brought it into the home. So in some ways, it's like going into your grandparents' home and just walking around. One of the neat things is we've got a mechanical bird cage, and that's one of the stories that goes back is his grandparents, supposedly his grandfather had a parrot here. Victorian men liked exotic things. The parrot kind of fit the bill, if you pardon the pun. And the parrot could talk, which was another, kind of unique thing. You like that bird, and the story's been passed down to us that one day after a long day at work, came home with a bundle of paperwork from the bank, probably had a bank meeting the next day, sat down at the table, and told his wife Sophia, I've got a meeting the next day, I'm going to spread out here after dinner. And she said, G.I., got a group of lady friends coming over, you're going to be better off in the library. Why don't you go upstairs and shut the door, and you'll have your peace and quiet. And so after the meal was over, he was kind of sputtering, the parrot was fluttering along behind him. The ladies were gathered a little later. Whatever the purpose of their meeting was, the parrot flew in and started singing songs about old mossbacks. Now, the ladies thought this was cool, the bird's singing, it's talking, they could understand it. Sophia was a little peeved because that was G.I.'s term of endearment, shall we say, for some of her friends that were hunched over a little bit and moved a little slow. And so within a week, the bird was gone. We don't know if it ended up on the dinner table, flew away, was let out, gave it to somebody else, but we like to say they had a loving relationship, and that bird cage is what replaced the parrot. And that's really kind of cool. It's one of the unique things that kids like to see because it does work, it sings, and it's kind of a neat story that shows a relationship between the grandparents. So that's one of the more unique things that we have here. We've talked about the stained glass windows, the feature of the house, where $6,500 this home was built, and that included a $500 surplus kind of override for the cherry woodwork that's in the library, but he wanted to make sure that the home came in right around that $6,500, so he wrote an addendum to the contract that said the leaded glass was to be installed by the highest caliber worker, finest quality leaded glass, not to exceed $2.50 a square foot. So we've got $20 windows here in the house. 2 pianos that we have here, both are still in the house. The Steinway's down in the basement. It's still here. It went through the Palm Sunday tornado up at Devil's Lake in 1965. I always tell people, if you want to buy a piano, Steinway's a good investment. A little bit of an ear damage, but otherwise just fine. The Harman Grand that's here that Louise brought in is currently covered with stuff, but it plays pretty well. There's a couple keys that are a little shaky, needs a little tuning, but there's that legacy that the 2 ladies of the house have left behind. If you start talking about the men of the house, G.I., I would say the house itself is really a testament to G.I., because you go back and look, he saved every revision of that contract as they were building that house, and then all the receipts on top of it. So that's why we can say, there's a $20 window here, there's a $3 sink that's in the butler's pantry. The second generation there, William R. Thompson, William Royal Thompson, his legacy to the house, he brought in some furniture that is kind of unique. We've got a drop front secretary that came out of the Owens estate down in Toledo, did a little shopping down there, thought he needed an office away from the office, so brought that desk into the home. Everybody thinks of Hudson as just being this little podunk town out in the middle of nowhere, wheat fields around us, soybean fields, there's not much going on here. And it's really kind of a skewed view because industry is really big here. We've got 17 manufacturers that are within the Hudson zip code. They're cranking all different kinds of things. You look at the downtown, there's kind of a renaissance going on with some new restaurants coming in. There's a lot of work going into the storefronts down here. And then you've got things like, the Thompson Museum, the Hudson Museum, that are bringing in people from Northwest Ohio around Lenawee County. And it's kind of a unique thing to be able to show people, here's what Hudson and Lenawee County have to offer. And take a look at it, examine it, and it's not exactly what you think it's going to be.